Professor Muralidhar has joined. I don't know whether you remember Ramesh.
Yeah, of course, yeah. I think you visited NCCS along with Saroj and Suren Gaskadbi. Do you remember, sir? You
Murli,
are,
you are unmuted. Unmute yourself, Murli.
Yeah, I remember you very well.
yeah.
We used to talk about your work long back.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that was all started in NCCS, the entire work with Dr. Watt supervision, the whole
Yeah,
founder director. Yeah.
absolutely.
So, Murli, how are you? You are in station only, not traveling?
No.
Okay.
Travel.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I am leaving for US on 20th.
Oh, with the you want to which son?
Grandson.
Oh, grand.
Uh,
Great.
Priorities have changed
At
because
wonderful.
we haven't seen him at all.
Then you must. Very good. Wonderful. Our blessings are always there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. So, what else is news there?
Then nothing. Of course, COVID the thing has come down tremendously. There's nothing else.
Delhi is full of pollution.
Yeah, that's what we see pictures in the newspaper.
Literally gas chamber.
I think the government has given up. I think no effort.
Mm.
Unless Supreme Court intervenes, nothing works in Delhi.
I know. That is having, AAP government and BJP
Yeah,
drama goes on.
absolutely.
Mm.
See what they have done for the extension of term for the retiring, all this CBI director and all that.
Yeah.
This is a slap on the Supreme Court.
I know.
It's
In
not
fact,
good.
that Sudhir Jain has become the vice chancellor of BHU
Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
from IIT Gandhinagar.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
Rakesh,
announcement.
term is over, is it?
No. He just took over a few years back.
Rakesh Bhatnagar had 2 terms or 1 term?
Only one term, 3 years.
BHU, they allow second term.
Mm.
Most people get, except I think Lachi, everybody gets.
Mm.
Maybe Rakesh wants to go back to research.
No, he has gone to Amity
Amity.
as vice chancellor.
Arre baapre.
Mm.
The JNU fellow was also vice chancellor somewhere, Amity, Gurgaon or somewhere. I don't know. Rajendra Prasad.
Rajendra Prasad, he didn't become vice chancellor. He was looking after the biotechnology and all in
Okay.
Noida. But he was not used to handling, such a large number of students in a class.
Yeah. Yeah, JNU is equal to one college in Delhi. Total strength,
Yes.
each college has 2,000 to 3,000 students. Total, we have 5 lakh students in Delhi.
Correct.
Whereas JNU is a small thing.
I
That's
know.
how they did very well.
Mm.
Excellent. It's only research.
I don't know why Utpal hasn't joined.
So, Muralidhar sir, you are also in Delhi? Or you where you
No,
are?
I am settled in Hyderabad.
Oh, Hyderabad.
Yeah. I had a flat I bought in 97.
Oh,
So after retirement, we
yes.
came down here.
So most of the time you spent in Delhi only. You were
Yeah,
in
about 40, 36 years I was in Delhi. Enough.
of course.
50 years of research, we have done enough damage.
I'm just waiting for the moderator to join.
Sure, sure.
Still time. It's okay.
So you'll go for 3 months or short?
Yeah, I'm coming back nearly 3 months, yes.
3 months. Very good. Enjoy.
So sometime in New Jersey, sometime in with Abhishek in
Very good.
Evanston.
Very good. But it will be deep winter. Huh?
Big winter, yes.
Which place in US?
New Jersey and Chicago.
I see.
Utpal has just joined. Hi, Utpal.
Hello.
Welcome.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. Good evening, all of you.
Good evening.
So today's moderator is Professor Utpal Bora.
Wonderful.
So, if you'd like to have a small introduction amongst all the members present over here, we can do that before we
Yeah.
start the formal
Sure.
session. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Why don't you start, Utpal?
Okay. Good evening, all of you. I am Utpal Bora, professor in the Department of Biosciences and Bioengineering at IIT Guwahati. I was Professor Kanan's PhD student when I was working in IGIB Delhi, and I moved to IIT Guwahati in 2004, just after my PhD, and I have been here since all these years. Thank you.
Vivek?
Good evening. My name is Dr. Verma, and I was a past student of Dr. Kanan.
But
कहाँ से ज्वाइन नहीं है तो मुझे नहीं सुनना मैं खाना खाने जा रही हूँ
Hello.
फिर तुम अपने कमरे में ही जाओ सुनील मैं टीवी चलाऊंगी
Hello. Am I audible?
तो हम लोग की
you're
लाइफ में
audible.
बहुत ज्यादा डिस्ट्रैक्शंस हैं सुनील लेट अस एडमिट
Yeah. I think somewhere a lot of air noise is coming. Can somebody unmute this? Lot of wind is blowing.
Yeah.
Somewhere a lot of wind is blowing in the room, I think. It is better now. No. So Shivani Desai, why don't you introduce yourself? You are a new face for us.
You are mute. Shivani, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So introduce yourself, Shivani.
Actually, I am a student of Dr. Brahmesh Bonde, sir. He
Okay.
is, he's my mentor for the stem cell research. So I am learning stem cell research under him, and basically I'm working on type 1 diabetes.
Oh, very good, very good, very good.
Thank you, sir.
Now,
I'm an old fossil. Don't
everybody knows you.
Nahin.
Yeah, he's going to
Kannan,
ask.
Kannan and me are good friends for over 40 years.
MC Money is my schoolmate.
Wow, wow, wow.
He is based in Dubai. So anytime you want to go to Dubai, he can help you with your arrangements.
Oh, wonderful.
Am I right?
Yes, of course, with pleasure. I'm in the tourism and the hotel business. But like Professor Kannan said, we are classmates from first to the fourth standard.
Excellent. So nice of you. So nice of you.
Thank you, sir. We'll definitely avail your warm hospitality. We are waiting for the restrictions on travel to go. we look forward.
Yeah, now there are
Thank you.
no restrictions. You know, the traffic has started. Indians can come without
Okay.
problems now. So you're welcome anytime. Do let me know.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for the information. Yes, sir.
Avinash Karat, can you introduce yourself? I know you are a scientist.
Yes. I'm student of Dr. Bonde, sir, D.Y. Patil Dental College. So last
Oh.
15 years, I'm working on stem cells.
Okay. What dental?
Dental of stem cells, yeah.
Okay. Very good. Very good.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Then Maya Dutt. Maya Dutt, can you unmute yourself? Deepika.
Hello. Yes, sir.
Introduce
Good evening, sir.
yourself. Introduce yourself.
Okay. So, actually, I'm a Dr. Deepika Arora, and right now I'm working as assistant professor at Shobhat University. I have done my graduation and post-graduation in microbiology. Since my inclination is always to work on the human physiology, so I did my PhD in toxicology and cancer biology domain from CSIR, Indian Institute of Toxicology Research. Then during my PhD, I was working on the liver degeneration. So I thought, and I found that yes, liver can be regenerate. So I thought, why not to make our own mini livers in the laboratories? So again, then based on my research, then I thought, let's learn about the tissue engineering and regenerative medicine. Then I moved to IIT Guwahati, and I worked over there for 1.5 years as a research associate, and I have learned over there the biomaterial and tissue engineering aspects. Then while working over there, I found there is lot of problems with the stem cells, like lot of variation is there. So then again, based on my research, my inclination it's converted into toward the stem cell biology. Then I got the Fulbright postdoctoral fellowship award, and I moved to US. And my hosts were National Institute of Standard Technology and NIH. And there I was working on I proposed one project, and I was working on the tool to minimize the variation among the stem cell based regenerative products. So that's my whole journey. It's like totally based on the research, that whatever results are coming, and I'm like moving on that direction only.
Okay, Utpal, I think we could start now. You take over.
Thank you, sir. So you'd like to start with your
Yeah.
permission.
Yeah.
So good evening, all of you. I welcome you today to this special lecture by Ramesh Bonde sir. And before we start, I request Professor Kannan to give a brief introduction
Yeah.
of the program.
Yeah. Basically, I'll tell you what activities we are doing, so that to get you familiar with. This program was started 7 months ago. And, I was very fortunate that Professor Muralidhar was one of our first people who was the panelist to, get the whole thing going, because Professor Muralidhar has always been a great source of inspiration. And let me just quickly, so just to give you a quick idea. So essentially, this was, there are a lot of misgivings happening on biotechnology. So, we thought we should promote the awareness about biotechnology among the aspiring and practicing biotechnologists, be it in life sciences, chemistry, or others. So we are focusing on a whole range of people right from high school right up to bachelor's, master's, PhD, postdoc, professors, teachers. And basically we facilitate university institutions offering biotechnology or life science or chemistry programs. We offer internships, which where we give a certificate of participation, where we give them an industrial knowledge of the subject, conceptual understanding. We have already had one major workshop for a lot of students. Then this is with the school students. So, we have created a best club for biotechnology education for students and teachers club, so that students can interact with a whole range of people. And, one of the internship we did is this one, where we are trying to bridge the gap between academic pursuit and the real world to make them employable. So first one was on proteomics, genomics, entomology, COVID genomics. Another week was on clinical application of stem cells. Third was on cytometry research and clinical diagnostics. Fourth was on food preservation technology and regulatory issues. So like that, we keep organizing various workshops. And, then we give also a certificate and tell them what the student has learned in the whole process, because we give them a lot of assignments with their submit, we evaluate, and they make a report. And right now we are also offering, you can go to our website, all these things are written there. So we give industrially oriented, research oriented, and techniques oriented internship programs. And we also, a lot of colleges do not have the right faculty, so we are willing to facilitate them with experienced faculty to talk on subjects. We also help in the faculty development program. And when you go through the home page, there are a lot of videos when you scroll down. So, some of the very famous people, who has influenced our life, we had talks on them, and which I strongly recommend that many of you should go and have a look at the video when you get time. Okay. Yeah. So over to you, Utpal.
Thank you, sir. So let me introduce today's speaker, Professor Ramesh Bhonde, who is currently with D.Y. Patil University, Pune, as Director of Research. He is working on dental pulp stem cell culture facility and a regenerative medicine lab, which he established in March 2018. Prior to this, he served as Professor and Dean at the School of Regenerative Medicine, Bangalore, for 5 years. He earlier superannuated from NCCS Pune as scientist staff and joined the Stempeutics Research Private Limited, Bangalore as technical director. And during this tenure, he moved to Stempeutics Research Malaysia branches in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He has been working in the field of pancreatic regeneration in diabetes for the past 30 years. He did his PhD at the National Institute of Virology, Pune. His areas of interest and expertise include stem cells, regenerative biology, tissue banking, and engineering, with special reference to the cultivation of fastidious cells such as hepatocytes, vascular endothelial cells, and isolates of Langerhans. He is a well-trained specialist in mesenchymal stem cell technology. Basically, he's a zoologist, and he has handled several projects dealing with development of fish cell lines of Indian origin and culture of amoebocytes from horse crab. Dr. Bhonde has extensively worked on in vitro generation of islets from pancreatic and non-pancreatic stem cells. He showed that multiple injections of unfractionated bone marrow reverse experimental diabetes in mice. His pioneering work on stem cells in breast milk is well appreciated by scientific community. Till now, he has guided over 23 PhD students and has over 328 publications and indexed on Google Scholar, and 250 on Scopus and 225 on PubMed. He has a total citation of 11,200 H numbers, which is a remarkable number. And his H index is 55, and I-10 index is 175. Dr. Bhonde has authored over 10 book chapters, and he is recipient of Dr. T.M.A. Pai endowments here in islet engineering and biobanking in October 2013, and Dr. C.M. Habibullah Annual Oration Award in January 2014. Subsequently, he was awarded Dr. T.M.A. Pai Endowment Chair second time to work on stem cell solution to insulin resistance during 2015 and 16. Recently, he has been inducted as an editorial board member of the journal Medical Hypothesis. In the last AD Scientific Index 2021 of World Scientist Ranking, he is ranked amongst top 5% and the topmost scientists in DPU. I have known Professor Bhonde since 2007, when I started my career as an independent researcher, my PhD. And at that time, I started working in tissue engineering, especially developing biomaterials from biological sources. And Professor Bhonde was very supportive of me as a collaborator in NCCS Pune at that time. I was totally new with cell culture because in my PhD, I was working in the interface of chemistry and biology and was having no knowledge of mammalian cell culture. With his help, I could establish the first cell culture laboratory, not only in IIT Guwahati, entire Northeast. And since then, I have also trained many students. This is all possible because of the collaboration of Professor Bhonde. Today in Northeast, you can find many mammalian cell culture laboratories all spread out. In my collaboration with Professor Bhonde, we published one very remarkable paper. For the first time, we utilized the Muga silk, which is the golden silk and very unique silk from India and Assam. It is only available in this geographical region. For the first time, we could show the utility of this material as a very, very potential biomaterial. It opened new, opportunities for many people who are now utilizing that material extensively. So I take this opportunity to thank Professor Bhonde for his long collaboration with me. And now, with these few words, I welcome Bhonde sir to deliver his lecture.
Okay, thank you, Utpal, for a very nice introduction. I think since you know me well since NCCS days, I am really happy to address this gathering because I would like to thank at the outset Dr. Kannan for giving me the opportunity to share my work which I did at NCCS, at Manipal, and also at the D.Y. Patil University in Vidyapet. So I will just try to share my slides. Can you see my slides?
Yeah, it's just coming. It's just coming. Yes, yes, it has come.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, should I make it full screen or it's okay?
Put it in the full screen by clicking on that cup.
Yeah. That's right.
And also reduce that, hide that blue line.
Correct. Right.
Thank you.
Is it okay? Yeah, fine.
Mm.
Okay, so I have chosen the topic type 1 diabetes cure by engineering pancreatic islets, which is of course subject of my heart, and I have been working in this field for quite a long time. So since we are celebrating insulin discovery century by Banting and Best, so I thought this will be a right opportunity to take a stock of situation, what happens after the insulin was discovered, and what is the progress in the management of type 1 diabetes. So as we all know, the diabetes is an epidemic of 21st century, and basically we have type 1, type 2 diabetes, which are very predominant, and the type 1 diabetes results from an absolute deficiency of insulin. So there is zero insulin because all the beta cells of the islets of Langerhans have been destroyed either by autoimmunity or virus-induced attack, ultimately by immunity only. And the type 2, which is very common, as we call this 40 of diabetes, results due to resistance of the body cells to the insulin. So it is basically predominantly by insulin resistance. Then we have gestational diabetes related only to the pregnancy, stress-induced diabetes, drug-induced diabetes, virus-induced diabetes, and of course there is another Modi with us, maturity onset diabetes of the young, which is come at the age of 25 or so. And of course that is very at a young age you get this diabetes. So initially we thought it will come only after the age of 40, so 40 of diabetes, but now it has come to 20, 25 and so on.
Oh.
So what we observe in a diabetic state, as we all know, that there is a decrease in the beta cell mass. Therefore, there is a glycosuria, then polyuria. Glycosuria is there is a presence of glucose in the urine, and the frequent urination is there, and hunger is there, hyperinsulinemia, loss of body weight. I mean, the first sign of the diabetes, whether in experimental animals that we induce by STZ injections, the first sign is the loss of body weight. So whenever there is a loss of body weight, I think the first thing one can check is the blood sugar. Then of course insulin resistance and so on. So many other things are there. So this is actually the Banting and Best story. Everyone knows it. It's the Nobel Prize winning discovery of the insulin, which he did some experiments on his beagle dog, and he obtained a Nobel Prize for his discovery because this is a life-saving discovery. And therefore, it is of extremely important that people were dying because nobody knew what is the reason, and the diabetes was not known. So insulin is the cure for type 1 diabetes, or at least for the management of type 1 diabetes. And this is very creditable that the insulin was discovered, and he also found that the source of insulin is the pancreas. So the pancreas and insulin were related because pancreas is the composite organ of exocrine and endocrine glands. As we know, the exocrine glands secrete the pancreatic juice, and the endocrine glands are the islets of Langerhans, which secrete the insulin in the most prominent hormone. So actually, 100 years after the discovery of insulin, the islet replacement therapy represents a new kind of medicine, says Professor Douglas Belton, co-director of Harvard Stem Cell Institute. So actually, is there any scope for the stem cells or any kind of cell replacement therapy for the generation of islets was the million-dollar question. And initially, all the type 1 diabetic patients, when it came to islet transplantation, still everyone depends upon the cadaveric pancreatic islets. So islets are isolated from the cadaveric pancreas, great patient, and then they are, of course, you need tissue matching and so on. We'll come to that later on. So all this work started at this National Center for Cell Science, NCCS Pune, where I spent all my research career there, and I was guided by Dr. Wag was the founder director. So actually, it was formed in 1982. Dr. Wag, Dr. Dewbach, I'm just going through a little history of this. That in India, we also thought of having an institute which will take care of the cell supply, research training, and also the hardcore research on cell as a background, in vitro models, developing in vitro models. So actually, Dr. Wag, Dr. Walker, Modak, Chandran, and so on, we sent a proposal to DST ICMR and the Germplasm Conservation Program and set up the National Cell Repository Research and Training Center. This was the earlier name when it was proposed, NCR and RTC, for rupees 4.2 crores. Then formation of NFCC happened at the Department of Zoology, where he came in contact with Dr. Kannan, who was the associate professor. He joined in 86, and since then actually we know each other, but in between we lost our contact, and now again it is resumed because of this. So it was a national facility for animal tissue and cell culture. That was a need of the time, because the cell culture platform is always good as a pre, what we called as non, instead of animal going for animal experimentation, it is in vitro platform, always gives us quicker results, and many a times you can get some clues to go for the preclinical research. So formation of NTCF interim facility was moved to Jignasa, and it was developed in 1988, and finally it was then turned into NCCS when Dr. Mishra took over this. So there is a little history of the NCCS, and this is just to show the Dr. Wag, because the all credit goes to him as a founder director of NCCS or NFATCC then. And this I am just showing the 3 generations of guide, that I am his first PhD student, and Dr. Anand Hardikar is my first student, and he worked on this pancreatic regeneration after diabetes after pancreectomy. So it was the first paper that we published in Journal of Endocrinology, whether, because basically I am a developmental biologist from Pune University and the Department of Zoology, when we had animal cell culture program in 1968, first batch of the students who passed out in 1970. Probably it was started in 1964. So under the program of developmental biology, that's why it was called as embryology, was headed by Professor Leela Muzerkar. And I was lucky to get this option of embryology, where we learned hardcore cell culture without having any laminar flow system. We just used the regular microbiology hood, gas burner, and so on. Now coming to this, our topic, the human pancreas is just depicted here, and because initially diabetes and pancreas, they are all correlated to each other. I mean, these are the words which will be, I mean, everybody knows that. So in the pancreatic section, this is what I was talking about, that in the center you see the islet of Langerhans, and it is among the least of all the exocrine pancreas, which constitutes about 98% of the pancreas, and only 2% is the endocrine pancreas, which consists of islets of Langerhans. And these islets of Langerhans, they produce insulin, glucagon, somatostatin, and several other hormones. And this is the endocrine part, and of course the hero amongst all is the insulin. And then these are what we call as the isolated islets. When we digest the pancreas with collagenase, we can get the islets of Langerhans isolated from the exocrine pancreas. And this is of course to show the islet beta cell immunofluorescence, how it looks like. So if we see the islet biology as such, because many of us may not be totally aware of the histology, or once we understand islet biology, we can further understand the islet transplantation, how it is possible, and how the islets will function inside the body after transplantation. So basically it has a rich vascular supply. I mean, any endocrine organ has to have a rich vascular supply, because the hormones are to be directly poured into the bloodstream, and therefore the endocrine glands are also called as ductless glands. Then of course they respond to the glucose. The insulin secretion as per demand, that is extremely important, that insulin is orchestrated in such a way that whenever there is a food intake, immediately the insulin is secreted in a double response, the first quick response and later on, and there are 2 peaks of insulin release. Then they maintain the blood sugar, and the isolation, culture, cryopreservation is possible. They respond to dietary sugar and show hyperplasia, hypertrophy under physiological and pathological conditions. I will come to that later on. So this is actually the histological picture which we show the evidence that can the pancreas regenerate. Is there any possibility that the pancreas can regenerate? And we show, of course, there are, we all know that in all the mammalian species, the liver and the pancreas are the only two organs which can regenerate if they are given an opportunity on their own. So, partial pancreectomy is known to induce diabetes, but this is reversible because at least in all the rodents and including the dogs and other animals, there is a possibility of regeneration of pancreas after pancreectomy. Of course, 100% regeneration observed in the liver. So liver is known for its regeneration. And how you can distinguish histologically the pancreas having a regenerating or what we call as regenerating pancreas is by showing a connection between the pancreatic duct and the islet. So this we showed in our paper of Journal of Endocrinology with Arun Hardikar in 1999. So it was the first evidence to show that the partial pancreectomy in diabetic mice reverses diabetes because of the regeneration of the pancreas. And we all know that there are resident pancreatic stem cells in the pancreatic duct, and this pancreatic duct actually gives rise to islet. So there is a connection between the duct and the islet, which is seen only in the regenerating pancreas. Otherwise, there is only association of the duct with the pancreas and the blood vessels, but there is no connection. So we are lucky to get this particular set of histological evidence, what we call as direct evidence of the pancreatic regeneration from the ductal progenitor cells. Now the possible mechanism, because everybody is interested, ultimately it's a balance between the beta cell birth and death, that whether you will have diabetes or you will have no diabetes. So the mechanism of islet birth are from islet progenitor, as I was saying earlier, the ductal progenitors, and they give rise to the new islets, called as islet neogenesis. Then we all know that embryonic stem cells can also give rise, differentiate into islets of Langerhans. I will talk about digestive stem cells, mesenchymal stem cell. There is also a known figure that the liver can also another developmental biological mechanism is the transdifferentiation, where the liver or the exocrine pancreas transdifferentiated into endocrine pancreas. So even there are evidences that in exocrine pancreas, and there are many differences of the transdifferentiation from liver to the pancreas. And then the paper came in Nature by Dohr et al. That even terminally differential beta cells can replicate and they give rise to islets of Langerhans, but I mean another beta cells. But if this happens regularly, we may not have developed diabetes. So only the 3% of the beta cells can undergo replication. So, and this is almost found by all pressure techniques in rats and mice, but there is you cannot, with all terminal differentiation, very small percentage of these cells actually give rise to islets. So the chances of getting beta cell replication and reversal of diabetes are very, very rare. So as I was saying that there are evidences for islet neogenesis under experimental diabetes. So it is known that partial pancreectomy also leads to islet neogenesis. Then SPZ treatment can lead to diabetes, pseudophenotyping. I mean, these are some of the models, EMCD virus and so on. And as I was mentioning that natural beta cell hyperplasia and hypertrophy can occur during pregnancy, during obesity, and what is called as honeymoon period of type 1 diabetes. That is when the this type 1 diabetes is basically childhood diabetes, wherein either due to autoimmune diabetes or virus-induced precipitation of the autoimmunity can lead to total destruction of the beta cells. But when the patient was presented to the doctors, with the first episode of this hyperglycemia, everything becomes normal because beta cells try to overcome this. Although there is the death of the beta cells, still the beta cell will try to generate because in the age of childhood. But that capacity ends, and then again if the diabetes recurs, so it is aptly called as honeymoon period of type 1 diabetes. Now beta cell death occurs, as we know, due to apoptosis, diabetogenic insults, cytotoxic drugs, glucotoxicity, lipotoxicity, so on. And therefore, cytoprotection of beta cells can also be a measure to prevent diabetes or delay the diabetic complications. So ultimately, we come this balance between the beta cell death and beta cell birth, or what we call it as insulin. Now, here I would like to mention, as an endocrinology, people will know that insulin is the only hormone which reduces the glucose load from the blood. So, insulin on one hand, and on the second, you can say the balance, all other hormones, glucagon, corticosteroids, adrenaline, contraceptives, sex hormones, adiponectin, all they try to raise the blood glucose. So now you can understand that the entire load of glucose reduction or maintenance of the homeostasis of the glucose, the credit goes to the insulin. So insulin is the only hero on the screen of endocrines which tries to reduce the blood sugar despite of the several heroines on the other side of the screen. So this is really the interplay. Why the diabetics are more? Because the insulin ultimately is the only poor fellow which tries to reduce the blood glucose. Now, when we talk about, I am talking only about the stem cell part in the what we call type 1 diabetes, because our topic relates to that. I will touch upon type 2 diabetes as well. But the hurdles in islet transplantation is the shortage of cadaveric pancreas. So actually it was shown earlier that it is possible to have a diabetes control in type 1 diabetic when there is no beta cells left. So the only option is to replace the islets of Langerhans. So actually the Riccardi was the person who first formed that Riccardi chamber to isolate the islets from the cadaveric pancreas, and then Edmonton protocol showed the proof of principle that it is possible to reverse or control and manage type 1 diabetes at least 2 to 5 years. Of course, there is a limit. You cannot have a complete freedom from diabetes, but at least it showed the proof of principle that it is possible to have islet transplantation from cadaveric pancreas to the type 1 diabetic patients. But still, there are several hurdles that isolation of sufficient number. Actually, you have 1 to 2 million islets in a single pancreas. But because of this process of isolation, we lose many islets. So, theoretically, to have a complete diabetes islet number sufficient to reverse diabetes in type 1 diabetes, you have to pull 2 cadaveric pancreas. So, it is all an expensive, and again, it all depends upon the availability. So, insufficient isolation, then there is no proper way of cryopreservation. Then, of course, although there is some kind of a matching, we have to have immunosuppression regime. Then long-term survival is not possible beyond 5 years, what the Edmonton protocol says. And many a times the islets will die because of poor vascularization leading to hypoxia. And another thing I would like to mention here, that these islets are transplanted into the liver and not into the pancreas. So liver is the organ which will harbor these newly transplanted islets, which they will hold, and from there actually they will do their job. So this reminds me of crustaceans, or as a zoologist, hepatopancreas. In all these crabs and lobsters, and you have, there is no separate liver and pancreas, but it is all hepatopancreas. So here also we take advantage of that. Then the therapeutic goal in type 1 diabetes is, of course, the preservation and protection of residual beta cell mass, prevention of beta cell apoptosis, induction of beta cell replication, induction of islet neogenesis, then control and management of hypoglycemia, and decrease in insulin resistance, and so on. So, Edmonton protocol, I think we coming to the generation of islets from the stem cell. Using islets isolated from cadaveric pancreas has shown the feasibility of diabetes reversal by allogenic islet transplantation. However, the ethical, biological limitations and scarcity of the islets, actually there is a need to find out alternative sources. Then autologous adult mesenchymal stem cells are now considered for cell replacement therapy in diabetes, as it has the potential to generate new islets, and adopting methods of islet encapsulation, immunoisolatory devices would eliminate the need for immunosuppression. I will touch upon all these points because since these are allogenic islets, you have to have immunosuppression, and if you want to prevent immunosuppression or reduce immunosuppression, you have to have something, isolatory mechanism by which you can keep the islets away from the immunological apparatus. So these are actually the sources of islets for transplantation: human cadaveric pancreas, then chronic pancreatitis, because many times during chronic pancreatitis they remove the pancreas, and these, then since the pancreas is removed, the islets can be isolated and they are auto-transplanted into the same patient. So it is an autologous source of, so there is no question of immunosuppression. Then people have also tried in New Zealand, Australia, xenotransplantation of the pig islets. Then now the newer sources from the stem cells are human ES cells, human induced pluripotent cells, and human mesenchymal stem cells. So I will be talking more about the human mesenchymal stem cells as a source for islet neogenesis. Now, as we all know, just to have an idea about the stem cells, how they differ from the somatic cells, the cells having infinite self-renewing capacity and a potential for differentiation. So actually, this is what we call in developmental biology in the mammalian, in all this animal kingdom. Zygote is the only totipotent cell, and later on, as you develop into cleavage, gastrulation, gastrulation, and so on, the totipotency is lost. Then you get pluripotent stem cells, multipotent stem cells, unipotent stem cells, and so on. And there is a very unique characteristics of the stem cell, that when the stem cell divides, it divides into one parent cell and one differentiated cell. So that way, what we call as, this is, although we say it's a mitosis, but it's an asymmetric division as far as the fate of the cell is considered. And therefore, one cell behaves as a stem cell. So the stem cell pool remains constant from birth till death. Of course, it will be diminished as per the age. But still, by this, just like your DNA replication mechanism, semi-conservative, here also, the stem cells have one stem cell and one differentiated cell. So this is what we call as asymmetric division. Now, the sources of stem cells for islet engineering, we have been using dental pulp, gingiva, then deciduous teeth, stem cells, bone marrow, breast milk, placenta, amniotic membrane, and so on. So basically, the idea was, can we develop these stem cells from the human source, which are normally discarded as a biological waste? So from this point, the entire delivery tissues that we get, amniotic membrane, umbilical cord, amniotic fluid, adipose tissue, endometrium, and so on, all these cells, it is possible to have the MSCs, or what we call as mesenchymal stromal cells, from these tissues, and they are characterized by their CD markers, CD105, 73, and so on. And the most important point of all these mesenchymal stem cells, that they are HLA-DR negative. That means they are non-immunogenic. So it is possible to transplant anybody's stem cells into any other individual. And therefore, there is a sprouting of several stem cell companies which are actually working on bone marrow stem cells, adipose tissue stem cells, dental pulp stem cells, and so on. And now they are going into clinical trials for osteoarthritis and many other diseases. So converting Banting's insulin into best insulin producing cells was actually a motto kind of thing, or as we say by the Juvenile Diabetic Research Foundation, their motto is turning diabetes type 1 to type 9. And this was found in 1970 to cure type 2 diabetes, which is far, still we have not achieved it. But efforts are continued to make the daily management of T1D easier, safer, and healthier. So toward this goal, we thought of converting whether adipose tissue stem cells can be converted into islets of algorithms. Now, adipose tissue stem cells actually are why we thought of, because I came across one reference where we showed that the fish adipocytes of a carp fish produce copious amount of insulin. Now, why adipocytes should secrete insulin? Because this is a completely a novelty, because it appeared at the Samir Bhattacharya. This paper was there in endocrinology, and I came across. So we thought that adipose tissue could be a good source, because as it is in the fish adipocytes, there are some signs of insulin secretion. And since we are all evolved from the fish-like ancestors and all these 10 carnations, Tatsya, Matsya, Varaha, and so on, so we thought that this is a good clue that we can take forward, that whether we can isolate the adipocytes and or the adipocyte stem cells and convert them into insulin-producing cells. So the beauty of the adipose tissue that everybody hates adipose tissue. But the best part of the adipose tissue was that nobody says no to take out kilos of fat from their body, because it is easily available. So it's an abundant source, it is easily expandable, easy to harvest, appealing to the donor, and permits autologous transplantation. Now this is very important, because now this generation, what we think about the future of type 1 diabetes cure will be to have the different sources of the islet generation from the stem cell. Of course, embryonic stem cells are there, pluripotent stem cells, or the IPS, induced pluripotent stem cells, are there. But this is again a lovely autologous source is adipose tissue, bone marrow, dental pulp, where you don't have to take the immunosuppression, because you are deriving the stem cells from the same patient and developing or differentiating into islets. So the idea is to have the auto islets develop from their own tissue, so that there are no chances of rejection. So these are actually the different samples that we can get from the mice epidermis fat or the human omentum. And of course, for many times for the obesity and bariatric surgery, lot of fat is removed from the body, and then it is available for lipoaspiration. So what we get ultimately are these fibroblast-like cells, and all the mesenchymal stem cells look like the fibroblasts, that is spindle-shaped cells, and they are all anchorage dependent. So that is their beauty, that these stem cells are anchorage dependent. They develop on the substratum, and you can grow them in a larger amount. So we have grown the stem cells in the Kumpuri Stempeutics, where I was involved in Bangalore Stempeutics. So they used to collect the bone marrow from the patients, volunteers, and pool the bone marrow stem cells together and have a bone marrow stem cell bank. And it was possible to actually expand these stem cells from a seeding density of 6 million cells to around 350 million cells in a span of 21 days. And for the stem cell therapy, they say, when you want to inject stem cells intravenously or for any kind of ailments, then you require 2 million stem cells per kg body weight. So it was possible to expand the stem cells to that extent, and many companies are doing that. So either there is a stem cell transplantation for different diseases other than the diabetes, because diabetes type 2, we are trying stem cell therapy to counteract the insulin resistance. But now my lecture will be down, I will focus only on the conversion of these fat cells into islets of Langerhans. So when we characterize these human cells, they are positive for vimentin, nestin, smooth muscle actin, fibronectin, and Ki67 is the actually proliferating marker. So all these stem cells will show these what we call as the characteristic cytoskeletal elements of the mesenchymal stem cell. The creatine is of course for the epithelial cells, and vimentin is for the mesenchymal stem cell. So by analyzing the cytoskeletal elements by immunofluorescence, it is possible to characterize these cells. And plus I told you that all these stem cells will have on their surface the CD markers like CD90, CD44, CD29 and so on. And they will make the what we call as, what we isolate are the bona fide stem cells. And another from the International Stem Cell Society, to call a given population of cell as a stem cell, they must be positive for CD90, CD29, CD7, several others, but they should be negative for CD34 and 45, which are hematopoietic stem cell marker, and they should be negative for HLA-DR. So all these characteristics has to do because no paper will be accepted in any journal unless you show that what you have isolated from a tissue, whether it is a tonsil, whether it is endometrial stem cell, placental stem cell, or any other dental stem cell, you have to show that they all have a particular set of CD markers. And another thing, that they should be able to differentiate it into an adipogenic, chondrogenic, and osteogenic lineage. So these are the basic requirement to qualify a stem cell that you are isolating your population. And returning people have shown that all the organs in our body have a residential stem cell population in the form of stromal cells. So it is possible to actually isolate stem cells from any human organ, as I told you, right from endometrium, menstrual blood, breast milk, gingiva, dental pulse stem cells, and so on. Now, as we know as a developmental biologist, that adipose tissue or the placenta or all these come from the mesoderm. And our pancreas is an endodermal derivative. So if we see the developmental plan of the progenitors to form during the development of the pancreas, you get all these transcription factors, and PDX1 is extremely important because if the PDX1 is absent, there is no genesis of the pancreas. So in the absence of PDX, the pancreas will never develop. And then you get NGN3, NeuroD1, PAX4, NXX2, and so on. Ultimately, you get. So the progenitors, actually, NGN3 beta is for the liver as well. And then different transcription factors will give rise to different types of cells in the pancreas. So we are interested in ILS1 PAX cells because we are interested in beta cells. Then we will also get alpha cells, duct cells, and exocrine cells. So this is the general developmental pathway of the development of the pancreas. And now to follow this, there were two challenges, that the mesodermic stem cells, which were isolated from the fat, to be converted into definitive endodermal cells, and then these to be converted into pancreatic endoderm to give rise to pancreatic endocrine hormones. So we were able to do that because of all the research work, and from the literature we formulated a 3-step protocol sequentially to convert mesodermic cells, adipocytes, stem cells into definitive endoderm by using a cocktail of serum-free medium containing activin A, sodium butyrate. So that is, there are 3 cocktails we used. Then this definitive endoderm was thrown into pancreatic endoderm by using taurine, and all these will have this normal tissue culture medium, DME, MF12, BSA, and insulin transferring selenium. So it all takes care of the serum-free medium, that is important, and that we all published in Stem Cells in 2009. So this was a standard protocol which we used with little variations to other stem cell types as well. And now what we see, that from a monolayer of cells, you can get floating islets of Langerhans in a petri dish or culture flask, and which you can stain with a specific stain called as diathiazone. So diathiazone has a zinc moiety, and since the insulin has the zinc moiety, so it stains the zinc part of that, and then they become. So these are all isolated islets without unstained, and these are stained with this diathiazone. So that is a basic thing, that what we are getting after that 3-day protocol are the islets of Langerhans. And the interesting part, that all the stem cells are glass adherent or plastic adherent, whereas the islets of Langerhans, they float into the medium. So you get the floating islets of Langerhans. And then we do all that kind of expression and transcription. So they are, as we say, these day 0, day 5. So it's a 10-day protocol. So there is a upregulation of the PDX1, NGN3, NeuroD, all the markers which I told you earlier. PAX4, NX7, PAX6, IS1, and GLUT2, which is receptor for the glucose. So all these, they naturally increase as per the day, and finally what we get, that they are also positive on insulin, glucagon, somatostatin, pancreatic polypeptide, and ghrelin. Now ghrelin was found, which showed us that the origin is adipocytes. So since they are adipocyte stem cells derived from the adipose tissue, what we call as adipose derived mesenchymal stem cells, ADSCs. So ghrelin was, of course, it came down, but the presence of that shows that it has the origin is from the adipose tissue. So insulin is upregulated, glucagon, somatostatin. That means whatever we have isolated, or what we call as islet-like cell aggregates, are true islets because they express all these islet hormones. They express all the transcription factors as for the development of the pancreas. And then by immunophenotyping also we showed that they are positive for PDX1, C-peptide, somatostatin, and so on. Now, when actually the insulin is cleaved from the proinsulin, you get two molecules, one is C-peptide and one is insulin. So C-peptide is a true marker for the islets, and in fact, many referees will, reviewers ask us to show the presence of C-peptide because that is endogenously produced. Because if the patient is on insulin, you can detect insulin in the bloodstream, but if you can detect the C-peptide, that means this is endogenously produced by the pancreas and so on. Then we also did glucose static stimulation assay, that whether, because the main thing that the islets of Langerhans must respond to the glucose level. So we incubated this with 5.5 millimolar glucose basic and dead by 22 or 16 millimolar glucose, and 1 hour assay, and you can see the peak of the insulin showing that these islets are responsive to the glucose stimulation. Okay, but still, all showing that whether these islets will perform their function after transplantation remains a question. So the ultimate sure test of these, that these islets must function after transplantation into the diabetic mice. Now here comes a very interesting part, that what we have isolated or what we have generated from the adipocyte stem cells are the human islet equivalents or islet-like cell clusters, which are positive for insulin and so on, and they also respond to the glucose stimulation. But if I transplant these human islets into the diabetic mice, then it is a xenotransplantation and they will be rejected outright. So here we took help of tissue engineering and biotechnologists from the Trivandrum Sri Chitramapura Institute, Dr. Prabha Nair, and she made some biocompatible capsules made up of this polyurethane and PVP interconnecting network, and these were the capsules in which you can pack the islets, and normally you require 800 to 1000 islets, and we could generate around 1000 islets from 1 million mesenchymal stem cells. So that was the ratio that you, because the islets of Langerhans is a mass of around 2000 to 3000 cells, and we get these islets with all the alpha, beta, and beta cells. So these were packed into these immunoisolatory capsules, and this capsule was introduced into the peritoneum of the diabetic mice. We induced diabetes by STZ injections, and then within the 3 weeks we found that the diabetes is totally reversed. So these are the blood glucose levels of the diabetic mice which are not transplanted with the islets, and these are which are transplanted with the islets in a capsule. And this is of course the GTT, glucose tolerance test, that we get the bell-shaped curve. So after transplantation, the diabetic mice show still high level, but all these transplanted animals, and of course this is a control normal animal, and this blue line will show bell-shaped curve showing that they also resume normal glucose tolerance test. We also have the picture of the eyelid, this transplanted eye cells recovered. But another thing is that whether we got the reversal of diabetes by regeneration of the original pancreas which was destroyed by STZ, or it is only because of the transplanted islets, we removed this capsule from the diabetic animal and we show there is a recurrence of the diabetes again. Blood glucose goes up. So it was easier to retrieve the capsule and show that the diabetes recurs again. That means again proving the point that the diabetes reversal was only because of the transplanted islets and nothing else. After we saw some engineering plasmid, this was done with the placental stem cells, same thing. But here what we did that we actually estimated the mouse insulin and human insulin into the transplanted animals by the same technique. So here you can say that means the mouse insulin was not there, but the human insulin was there because the human insulin, there are specific antibody monoclonal for human insulin, and you can detect and estimate these that which we are shown in another paper from classical MSCs. So what our group has shown that non-pancreatic sources of MSC for islet generation, because people have already shown that from the pancreatic stem cells, like ductal stem cells, one can get the islets, or even from islet to islet beta cell replication is there. But we showed that the non-pancreatic sources like adipose tissue, then dental pulp, and so other, all these sources can give rise to new islets. So that we all published. And for the first time, we showed the differentiation of dental pulp stem cell into islets like aggregates. This was from when I was in Malaysia, we published this. Then human bone marrow derived stem cells, this we published in NCCS. Most of the work is done in NCCS. Some of the later on work was done with dental pulp. Finally, because here only we show the proof of principle. Here we show that reversal of diabetes by islets of Langerhans transplantation derived from dental pulp stem cell. So these are another papers. So many papers we have published on this area. So ultimately, the non-pancreatic sources or the concept was what we called as trash to pleasure. So the stem cells, actually the best sources of stem cells are those which are discarded as a biological waste. So umbilical cord, placenta, endometrium, amnion, MTP residue, fallopian tube, and many others, not we, but other groups have also shown that it is possible to generate the islets of Langerhans from umbilical cord, all these sources, by following the same principle, differentiation, transplantation, and so on. So the focus of our islet research lab was, of course, to use different tissues. Now here, dental pulp, gingiva, and shape, because we have established a cell culture facility or GMP facility for stem cell research in the regenerative medicine lab, Dr. D.Y. Patil, Vidyapeeth. So here we can do all these. Actually, these are all currently going on. We also do cryopreservation and, of course, islet transplantation. We have good animal hosts. So non-pancreatic sources, then stem cell culture, islet differentiation, and characterization and efficacy testing. Now, another thing is, we may not use immediately because a lot of islets will be required for the human clinical trials, which we are of course going to do. But so many million cells, so you require large scale production of MSCs and then converting into islets, because as I told you, require minimum 1 to 2 million islets to be transplanted into the type 1 diabetic patient. So you require that kind of, that size of the islets, so this is a limitation, but it is possible to do that. We have done few experiments with the pigs because pig and human are insulin wise and they are fine, and therefore it is possible to even reverse the diabetes of the pig. This was also done with some ICMR grant with Sri Chitra Srina Institute, Ravindra. So this is our regenerative medicine lab where we have quality control, culture lab, all GMP accredited. So it is possible for us to produce the clinical grade stem cells for the stem cell clinical trials as well as for converting into the islets of Langerhans. So the focus of regenerative lab is extra because since the lab is established in the dental college and there are always extraction of teeth for one reason or the other, we can get the pulp tissue and we can do so many other things. They can be converted into neuronal because dental post stem cells one more characteristic feature that it is ectodermal in origin. And therefore, the dental post stem cells can be thought as a good candidates for the neurological disorders like diabetic neuropathy or even Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and so on. And we have shown in some of our papers that we can convert these dental post stem cells to the form of secreting neurons. Now we also got some big BIJ biotechnology grant to develop an artificial gingiva. So we are taking stem cells from the gingiva and convert it into the stem cells we put on some kind of a matrix or a collagen and we form a live cell construct to give support to the lost gingiva so that the implantation becomes easier. And also many times there is a recession of the gingiva and you need to have that replacement of the gingiva for fixing the teeth. And therefore we got this project and we are successful in generating a bio-artificial gingiva which can be transplanted into the patient. So we are working on that. So in summary, large number of islet clusters could be generated from MSCs discarded as a biological waste. And they are all character we can able to reverse the diabetic properties and stem cells can be used for islet tumorigenesis and so on. So all this work was done at NCCS. So Vikas Chandra is the person who developed these islets and stem cell paper that islets can be generated from adipose tissue stem cell and we show that. Then this is Sachin Kadam who showed that they can be developed from the placenta and umbilical cord. Then Meenal Banerjee showed that dental bulbs of the islets can be generated by the bone marrow stem cell and the bone marrow stem cell themselves can be injected into the diabetic mice and it is possible to reverse diabetes. So before we published this paper, of course, there was a paper in Nature by Dr. Bhatia who showed that yes, bone marrow stem cells can be used for the reversal of diabetes. And now there are some clinical trials going on. One in Chandigarh, Dr. Bhansali is working on these stem cells for type 2 diabetes and they are injected the stem cells from the bone marrow directly into the pancreatic artery so that the stem cells will be directed towards the pancreas. Then this is Savita Datta who worked on chick pancreas, this is our technician Malti. Then this is Ravi Shukla who in Australia now working on nanoparticles. And this is Manipal Institute of Regenerative Medicine and this is my group there where she has worked Ranjita on pancreatic stem cell, Bhavana has worked on actually stem cell co-transplantation with mesenchymal stem cells and so on. And she also worked on placental stem cells. Muhammad worked on the decidual teeth mesenchymal stem cells, so on. And this is our group at Regenerative Medicine Lab, BPU, where this Avinash, they are working with the PhD students. Dr. Supriya is there in charge of the lab, and of course I guided the entire team. And thank you. So this is all my group. I mean, all credit goes to Dr. Wag for having such a wonderful institute to take care of the cell culture and then expand our horizons to stem cell differentiation and so on. So this was the captured at the NCCS one of the lab from Dr. Hardikar who also joined later on. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a very interesting talk and especially the work on your current work on the dental pulp and with age, many people are having that dental problem. So I now request the participants to raise their hand and ask questions one by one.
Dr. Gundu Rao.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Bonde, do you remember Dr. Gundu Rao?
Of course, yes, sir.
Yeah, very kind of him to join. He is senior to you also, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Rao.
Dr. Bonde, I have followed this for a long time. I even visited you in your Bangalore facility.
Yeah.
It's a nice piece of work. I have a question. We did this studies in 1980 in a animal model, streptozotocin rat model. Showed that indeed you can reverse the effect of diabetes by just islet cell transplantation. There we just followed the arachidonic acid metabolism, showed how it alters when diabetes develops and how we can restore the balance post-transplant. Since then, a lot of work has been done. We also showed you can almost isolate these cells and put it into any part of the body. It will grow and help. And furthermore, they thought it was even simpler to take these pancreatic cells from cadaver and transplant. But nothing has happened since in this whole area of transplant-induced correction of diabetes. Why is it that...
because it's a very, very costly affair, as I told you, because they require immunosuppression and to retrieve the islets from 2 cadaveric pancreas. It is difficult to get even 1 cadaveric pancreas, and it was all supported by JDRF Foundation. So only in the clinical trials, patient could afford that. So it's a very, very costly affair. I mean, no common man can afford islet transplantation from cadaveric pancreas.
But isn't it possible in India to obtain permission from the ICMR or
We are
ministry?
saying that, I mean, even they are all trying from different stem cell as a source, so that islets can be generated to that extent, so that copious volume can be transplanted to reverse diabetes.
Yeah, that's, I think, is a very interesting approach because even the stem cell approach will be expensive at some point to produce large quantities.
Some hope, ray of hope.
Yes. I enjoyed the presentation. It was nice to see all of you on the screen.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All the best for you.
After a long time, because we visited even Department of Zoology.
Yeah. I met Modak and Gedla. Nice seeing you, Dr. Krishnamurthy.
Hello, sir. How are you? Very kind of you to join from USA. It must be very early for you now.
It's 9 o'clock. It's not very early.
Okay.
I still have a lot of interest in cardiometabolic diseases.
Yeah, basically, cardiovascular.
Interesting part for me.
You know Professor Muralidhar Gundara?
I don't think I've met him.
Okay. Because Gundrao has been very active in Bangalore, interestingly.
His speaker is off. Murli, the speaker is off, I say.
Yeah, I have not met him, but I have heard about him.
Oh, thank you.
First time I'm seeing him.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to ask one question, Ramesh, that what is actually happening in type 2 diabetes? They say insulin is not active. And you were also saying that an active islet should create the C-peptide.
Right.
Yes. So what is really happening in type 2 diabetes? I mean, why is it inactive?
I understood your question, but basically there is enough insulin, but the tissues, body tissues are not responding to that insulin. So it is accompanied by hyperinsulinemia. There is no scarcity of insulin, but the adipose tissue, liver, and the muscles don't respond because that is what we call as insulin resistance. So here what we say that by transplantation of only stem cells, mesenchymal stem cells, not the islets, because whether they can act something as insulin sensitive cells or like a metformin. So people are trying that because one thing is you don't require tissue matching. So you can use anybody's stem cells, I mean, from all these sources, as I told you. So these are non-immunogenic. So they can be transplanted intramuscularly, and whether it is possible to counteract the insulin resistance. So So many, I mean, now we are also going to undertake this in DY Patil because there is a call for proposals from DBT for especially clinical trials in different patients. People have also worked out in osteoarthritis that they inject these stem cells directly into the knee and there is a regeneration of the cartilage.
Now, you also said about Chitra Tirunal, which you had a collaboration. They made a capsule.
That's it, yeah.
Why couldn't you try on some human trials? Because you said,
Of course, the design will have to be little more, and the transplantation, whether we can do it in peritoneum, is the best thing to do with that immunoassociatory device. But to accommodate thousands of islets into that, we require different kind of a design.
So, up to what age can you create that capsule? You said number of cells required is a minimum.
The number of cells, as I told you, that 1 million cells will give you.
1 million means how many? What age group can you handle? How much kilogram people?
No, we actually, all pediatric samples we can definitely have. Type 1 diabetes, yeah. Up to
Okay,
10
pediatric.
kg, yeah.
Okay.
So they may be 20 kg or 30 kg, but not the adults.
Okay.
In fact, Dr. Chandy from Sri Chitra Tirunal joined me as a postdoctoral fellow
I see.
in the 80s, and he developed the isolation of the cells and making into lipid enclosed capsules and things like that. And we did the early work at Minnesota. But in all of those things, it was okay for us to do at the level of an animal model.
Right.
We couldn't take it further to the human model level. But as Yagnik has explained in his most recent article, looks like the South Asian phenotype is very unique in the sense it almost can be called as 1.5 type diabetes rather than 2. The reason being it is more insulin resistant than obesity-related diabetes, because Indians by and large are not obese in that classification. But with the collaboration of the Chennai group, we showed that is kind of not a true fact. If you go by hip-waist ratio, you can show that they are also obese in some ways, because the adipose tissue is more visceral than distributed equally in the entire body. So the central abdominal opacity also enhances the insulin resistance. So when they compared the British group with the Indian group, did the analysis, they showed in British and other cohorts, it was insulin plus obesity as a type 2 diabetes promoter, whereas in Indian cohort, it was more an insulin resistance type.
Right. Yeah, Dr. Yadnik has done a lot of work on that.
Yeah.
In fact, I was wondering why this type 2 diabetes has suddenly increased so much in India. What could be the cause?
Well, one of the
lifestyle.
One of the causes is the diet. It's very difficult to change the diet of Indians in terms of reducing the carbohydrate.
Yeah, all fast food and no exercise.
Yes.
Habit. Yeah.
And that is one of the major factors there. In fact, in the Newcastle University, Taylor has shown that low-calorie diet itself reverses diabetes. Okay. He has put several subjects on a low-calorie diet and shown the reversal of diabetes. And even, for example, I'm 30 years diabetic. Just taking GLP-1, which drops the weight, lowers the hemoglobin A1C level. So that clearly shows the weight relationship as well as the increasing the sensitivity of the insulin also, because insulin is there, but it is not responding. And improving that by the metformin or a glucagon-like peptide will correct that defect. And so these are some of the things that we are working on. But my interest is from the development biology approach. And that's what we try to do with Children's Hospital here with Yagni, where they were able to show that the obese women shed exosomes, which have microRNA, which reprograms the fat metabolism in the fetal growth. And these low birth weight children have more of the cardiometabolic diseases than the normal birth rate. But the big question is two of three. One is why it takes 40 years. Whatever the programming doesn't appear immediately. It is almost an adult disease, but the developmental things occur in the fetal. So Barker's hypothesis was the nutrition part of it. He thought it was the retardation of the nutrition of the fetal growth which caused. But the Children's Hospital here, they think there is a genetic component and the microRNA is doing that. And so we are interested in that part of it for fetal reprogramming, whether that can be reversed at that early part. For example, in the HIV mothers, they also have low birth weight children. In Africa, a UNICEF program introduced nutritional supplements and showed that the low birth weight can be corrected. And we suggested it to the ICMR and Indian counterparts, and they still haven't done any interventional studies, although the UK group is working at Mission Hospital, Mysore for the last 10 or 15 years. They're still working on the epidemiology part. They have 3 or 4 cohorts.
Yeah, fetal origin of fetal disease.
Yeah. So we are very much interested in the nutritional aspect as well as the molecular basis at the developmental stage. So these are very interesting topics that I keep thinking about it. And there's the collaboration that I brought to Pune when we met you in Pune a couple of years ago.
But Ramesh, you also said now suddenly you are seeing diabetes in the 25 years age group. Yeah, Ramesh, how do you explain this appearance at the 25-year age group? No, you said earlier you said diabetes happens above 40 normally.
Yeah, so I think
Suddenly
what we
you
call
are saying 25.
Yeah, this is what we call the maturity onset diabetes of young MODY. So it has come predominantly now at the age of 20 to 25. It is neither type 1 nor type 2. But of course, the symptoms are same. Only it comes early age, so you have to do with that hypoglycemic drugs and insulin and so on.
Thank you, sir. Especially Gundu Rao, sir, for such an interesting discussion. And as he was speaking about low birth weight, there is one associated phenomenon. Children which are born with low weight, they have more chances of having obesity and diabetes at a later stage. I mean, that's something very, very paradoxical.
Yeah. They say if you pamper the child who is a low birth weight and see that it becomes fat and floppy, then naturally this raises the load on the insulin.
Yes. I have one question to Gundu Rao, sir. Sir was speaking about low calorie diet. What should be the amount of calorie? I mean, 1500, 1200 or?
No, they have tried as low as 600 to 800 calories.
Oh, really?
That's where my question comes. How long can you maintain that kind of a low calorie?
Yeah, low calorie.
Yes.
Because the reversal is okay. You can do that. It doesn't take very much. But can I live on 600 calories for the next 20 years? So
Yes,
the question would come,
That
can they
is
correct
also anti-aging. Low calorie diet is also for anti-aging. All the experiments show that because the oxidative stress is less.
Yeah. I'm very sorry. In between, my network link was down, so I switched off to the mobile. Now my network is again back, which is better. So Muralidhar sir wanted to ask some question. Probably that was admitted by Kanan sir, or
Thank you, Dr. Bora.
sir, you would like to ask now?
Couple of questions, but before that, I should compliment actually Professor Bonde. It's a mesmerizing talk, very classical mold of work. I was impressed by the capacity building that you have done. Enormous number of people, young people who have been trained in this area, and luckily it has not been spoiled by molecular biology.
Yeah.
So getting trained by you, I think, because the identification of the adult stem cell is itself a big technical problem.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
understand.
simply jumping to molecular things will not work here.
Correct, correct.
Leave all that. I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Where you have or people have done this so-called replacement of either stem cell derived or cadaver derived islets. If the patient had autoantibodies,
Yeah.
they will not damage this newly transplanted one.
Definitely. So that's why the transplanted islets also don't survive longer. Then
Okay.
so you have to control autoimmunity by immunosuppression.
The other question is, in the mesodermal endodermal transition,
Yeah.
I saw that you are using a molecule called activin.
Right. Right.
This is a FSH releasing hormone,
Right.
reproductive biology.
Correct. Correct.
What does it do here?
No, no. Actually, it is also a differentiating agent because people in frogs developmental biology also people have used different concentration of the activin to show some kind of differentiation. So activin is basically differentiating agent. That way.
It's also one of the differentiation
Yeah,
factors.
yeah, exactly.
It's wonderful. I really enjoyed your talk.
Right.
I
Thank
wish
you,
people
sir.
continue the classical work instead
Yeah,
of
yeah.
jumping to molecular biology.
That's why I feel proud that we are all basically zoologists.
It's very good, sir. And also Mullarkar's department.
Yes.
The training
That's
is
exactly
excellent. Yeah.
Excellent, no doubt.
I really enjoyed. I think this is what we need instead of looking at transcription factors and other
That's
things.
true.
Dr.
If-
Bonde, I should tell you all of
Thank
this
you. I really enjoyed
story.
it. I learned a lot.
When I was to do my master's, my father-in-law took me to Indian Institute of Science, and I met Krishnamurti, the genetic professor there, and he said, genetics is a dying subject, don't do it, go and do entomology. So I went to Pune to do my entomology, although I had a wonderful embryologist there, Nilam Lerka. And I never thought that I would ever think of developmental biology at that time. Now in my late years, I'm thinking of development biology as a curative for the diabetes.
I think somebody has to ask me questions. I don't know. Maybe
Actually, the name is being listed as Alu Paratha. I was
Yeah,
trying-
Deparshit Mukherjee is its name.
Right, right. So kindly please introduce yourself, and you can also switch on your camera, and you kindly ask your question. Yeah.
I'm very sorry, sir, but I'm in a very low light condition, so turning on my camera will be a challenge to me.
Anyway, you
Just
can
the
just introduce yourself. Yeah.
Yes. I'm Debashish Mukherjee, and I'm currently pursuing BSc Biotechnology third year from Mumbai University.
Okay.
So I'm very much keen towards the greener side of the biotechnology rather than the red side of the biotechnology, as Mr. Ramesh sir explained about transplanting the this things of islet cells. But there would be a lot of from challenges from HLA to challenges from tissues. But rather than going for this thing, why don't we go for a greener side? Like many yoga abhyas such as Mandukasana and yoga such as Kapalbhati are very much effective against this. My father himself is pre-diabetic, and I started him these things, and it's been more than 2-3 years, and he's still keeping a good track of his glucose levels. He's having a very balanced glucose levels. Also, with adding with that, we have very very other things in Ayurveda, which says using of bottle guard, sweet bottle guard juice.
Right.
So why don't we do more research on this type of things rather than doing surgery? Because surgery is a very costly procedure.
No, no, I understand. This is all true for type 2 diabetes. It can be very well controlled by herbal supplements. But what they say, you have to take some allopathic medicine like metformin as an insulin sensitizer, because insulin resistance is the main cause for type 2 diabetes. And of course, we are also trying many herb because we are Ayurveda college. So the question is whether we can use this stem cell platform for screening the herbal medicines and also the islets generated not for transplantation but for basic diabetes research. That you add Karela juice to the islets and see whether they secrete insulin or something of that kind. Insulin secretagogue action of some herbal medicine that can be tried. But as you say, there are limitations for the yoga therapy and all these. Now, there is one school of thought, even I have published one paper, that yoga therapy can stimulate stem cell trafficking from bone marrow to the peripheral blood. And also, that it is also possible that way that you have some pranayama, yoga, all the combination therapy. One has to have individualized for that, and then you can have a good control on diabetes.
Thank you very much, sir, for answering the question. And I'm very sorry for
Yes,
to
fine,
the
perfect.
No,
seniors
it's okay.
with the name.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Yeah.
So if
You're offering aloo paratha to me.
right, but sir, you have to take low calorie diet, and then he has to really calibrate.
Not aloo paratha.
Yeah, thank you, Devasis. So if there are some other questions, we can take one or two questions more, or
Yes.
We can close, I think. Yeah.
yes,
No more questions. Yeah.
yes.
No,
So
I
Yes,
just
sir.
want to add,
okay,
you
sir.
know, I have seen Dr. Ramesh Bonde starting his career because both of us in Pune University started same time.
He was requiring.
The kind of vision with the Dr. Wag started the whole department. I thought it would have gone into stem cell in a very, very big way. But what I find is it has moved into diversity of areas quite removed from what the mandate was. Am I right to say that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because Dr. Wag's vision was to develop a cell culture bank and then to supply and train people in that, and
Yeah.
not the molecular biology as Dr. Muralidharan has rightly said, because everybody wants to ultimately go to molecular biology, molecular level, action, mechanism, and so on. So the basic purpose was lost. So the whole NCCS has a mandate of cell repository, teaching, training, develop manpower, and then research on the related areas of the cell culture.
Because so that's what I felt a bit sad that the efforts which were put in the early years.
Yeah, so it
because
became like another CCMB or another molecular biology lab.
I know, and also I must say, thanks to your training, many children did animal cell and tissue culture,
absolutely. Yes,
and
yes.
many of them have gone on to do very well later in life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think that training was a very crucial. I think that is what made Pune
And we still
Biotech stand
conduct
out.
these all training programs we conduct even at DY Patil. So we have some short-term courses for cell culture, stem cell culture, and so on. So that thread still goes on. What I learned from Dr. Wag is continued in the next generation.
Okay. Now, I also want you to say in those days, what are the other areas other than diabetes where, when Dr. Wag was there, what are the other areas of focus in tissue culture? Because one of them could have been vaccine. Did it ever happen there, producing vaccines?
Correct, correct. No, we were interested in cornea preservation and transplantation, human cornea. Because after the eye donation, the life of this cornea is only for 48 hours. So we developed the organ culture method by which you can extend the life of cornea in cell culture for 35 days. And we've flown that cornea from Pune to Delhi and All India Medical Sciences, and they transplanted, and that person got the vision. So it is the extension of the eye bank activities, because normally they prefer to keep it in a refrigerator for 48 hours in a moist chamber. Then another was heart valve. We had collaboration with Dr. Chaukar from KU Hospital, Bombay. He was a cardiac surgeon. He came on some fellowship to learn tissue culture at NCCS, and then we actually developed a technique to have homografts of the heart valves, which can be preserved for some time and then they can be grafted, because all these tissues do not require tissue matching, cornea, heart valves, and so on. So that was his angle was translational research. But whatever you do, must be translated to the human.
Yes. Now he also did some work on making an artificial pearls, if I remember right.
Yeah, one project DBT gave us some grant because you can have that mantle of these pearl oyster. So from Tuticorin, I think Dr. Dharmarajan actually collaborated with us, and we show that you can have that mantle pieces in 96 well plate, and you add some growth factors or some kind of a stimulating agent on which the pearl can be later on layered, and we could succeed in getting half a pearl, not a complete pearl. But it is good for the earrings, which can be seen only half of the pearl and so on. But I mean, later on, we did not get much funding, and those the fishery persons were there. They were not, but it was a good thought that you could literally produce pearls from the mantle by tissue culture.
Okay.
There is a lot of work on pearl culture.
Yeah.
At Semaphore, Cochin, its branch at Vishakhapatnam.
Yeah.
I had an occasion to inspect all of them. Extraordinarily good work.
In fact, may I suggest that Dr. Bonde, you must write that period during WOG and what was the dream he had. I think you must publish an article, so that people should know that they can revisit it again.
Right.
Because as Professor Muralidhar rightly said, your sources talk without any molecular biology. It was so nice to hear. I think people should know that you don't have to be a molecular biologist to do the kind of work which can be helpful to society. So I may request you sometime to write a nice article on, the thoughts you had when you created NATCF.
Yeah, I will join hands with you, and both of us, because since we know the entire story, definitely we should do that. Yeah.
Over to you.
Dr. Wag, yeah, he's 90 years old.
I know. I wish he had joined today. I would have liked people to see.
He's not keeping good health. Yeah.
Okay. Utpal, take over. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Indeed, I feel myself to be very privileged sitting amongst all these illuminating personalities. Professor Bonde, my own guide, Professor Kanan, and Gundu Rao sir, I'm meeting for the first time online. Muralidhar sir, I have met earlier also, and probably in Delhi University. Sir is from Delhi University, if I am correct.
Yes.
Yeah, I visited your department a couple of times. And maybe there are many other people I cannot see in the screen their names. So I thank each and every one of you for being present here today. A very interesting talk, and the discussion part was much more interesting. Many new things I learned today, whether it is the islet cells which are being transplanted in the liver instead of in the pancreas was not known to me. And then finally, the pearl culture in tissue culture plate. These are really something very, very innovative and actually disruptive ideas. And probably these all things need to be documented in some way in the format of popular science, because scientific papers have their own kind of audiences, but most of the times we miss out in
one more thing I wanted to tell you, DBT has also sanctioned that horseshoe crab amoebocytes culture. Because gill is this source of amoebocytes. So we culture the gills. And another thing is you don't have to kill these pearl oyster with these horseshoe crab. You can just take a part of the gill and it regenerates.
Okay.
So they have the ability. So we showed that amoebocyte was actually collaboration with NIO, Dr. Chatterjee. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And as Kanan sir is suggesting, the original vision plan of your institute, NCCS, and it's matter of concern. Actually, almost all institutions are becoming similar with similar kind of mandates, similar kind of aspirations. the whole diversity of science is actually dying down in a way. Everybody want to work with some kind of genomics or transcriptomics, metagenomics. Somehow they will forcefully connect to it, right? But then the traditional conventional disciplines, very, very important for science to survive. I think the new education policy will give a lot of emphasis on it, but then the guidance from people like you would be required. So once again, I take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you. Very interesting session today. So I request Professor Kannan to give a closing remark and then finally wind up.
Yeah. In fact, thank you so much, Dr. Bonde, for so readily accepting to give the talk. And, I really got educated because I really wanted to learn that when I was a faculty in zoology department. But somehow, for what I as you know, I was interested in a lot of things to learn in developmental biology.
Right.
But somehow the environment wasn't there at that time or whatever, because it was, again, as Muralidhar rightly said, it was a molecular biology driven, genetic engineering or the hot stuff.
Of course.
But what I'm saying is, I think you gave a new perspective to zoology students. I think what I liked in your talk today was, you don't have to be a molecular biologist. Like you said, you use the fish also,
Yes.
to get the adipose tissues to create islet cells and all. I think which are the diversity organisms which can be pulled in, because after all, if you look at all the model organisms which people have done, somebody has done the effort to use it as a model organism, whether Xenorhabditis or Drosophila or anything. I think for stem cell thing, I think you must allow students to experiment on all the diversity organisms from which you can create this thing. And number two, what I liked about your talk was, you were talking about mesenchymal stromal cells.
Right.
It gave me an impression that whether the stroma is affected or the stem cell is affected is another question which comes to my mind.
Right.
Probably it is another debate which we can have on this. But it is important that even if stem cell is okay, if the microenvironment is faulty, until you repair that, the insulin production may not happen. Probably that is what is happening, probably in insulin resistance, probably. I do not know. I may be wrong, but I just wild thought. But I think overall, Ramesh, it was a brilliant talk. I enjoyed really, and I'm sure all the audience greatly thank for taking us through this journey. And I hope one day we'll have a cure for diabetes. And I think all your work one day will culminate in somebody making it a translational research. Thank you so much. And thank you, Utpal, for, you want to say something, Utpal?
Yes, sir. Before we wind up, I request all audience to switch on their mic and give a round of applause for Professor Bonde.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So we can...
next lecture we will be on climate change, and one of the very dear friend of mine who is one of the world-renowned person called Dr. Ripu Daman Malhotra, who has written the classic book called A Cubic Mile of Oil, Alternate Sources of Energy.
Wow.
And he will be speaking next time. He is in USA. He did his PhD with George Olaha in chemistry, then did a lot of research on coal research at the Stanford Research Institute. So he'll be the next speaker. I'll announce the date very soon. So thank you so much. So looking forward all of you to join us in the next one.
Thank you, Dr. Kannan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Professor Bonde sir, Gundurao sir, and Dr. Bora. It was a really educative talk. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, nice to
Thank
see
you, Kannan.
again.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mani. Yeah. Bye.